Aren't you afraid? That man could be a scammer. Caleb turned to his younger cousin, his voice deep and steady. I've jumped into water for my teammates. The forest doesn't scare me. The stranger sat trembling beneath a pine tree, clothes torn, face smudged with dirt, but his eyes carried the unmistakable gaze of a veteran soldier. Caleb offered him water, then set up a shelter and stayed by his side through the night. The next morning, as the sun barely rose, dozens of Marines formed a line outside Caleb's home. Type 1 if you believe no soldier ever leaves another soldier behind. Welcome to QH. Let's uncover what really happened. Caleb Porter, 41, was a former Navy SEAL who had served for 18 years before retiring from active duty. After leaving the military, he retreated to the Northern California mountains, working as a foreigner before the company of tall pines and distant eagles, to the chaos of civilian life. The mountains didn't ask questions about the nightmares that still woke him at 3 a.m., or why he checked every exit when entering a room. On a crisp late autumn afternoon, Caleb was leading a hiking group along a forest trail when he noticed something unusual. A small landslide, disturbed earth and footprints suggesting someone had stumbled off the marked path. Continue ahead to the viewpoint, he instructed the group. I need to check something. I'll catch up in 15 minutes. His cousin Zach, visiting from Chicago and joining the expedition, raised an eyebrow. What's wrong? Probably nothing, Caleb replied, already moving toward the disturbance. But I'd rather be sure. Following the trail of broken branches and disturbed undergrowth, Caleb moved with a silent efficiency that had once made him legendary among his SEAL teammates. 50 yards off the main path, he found him. An elderly man collapsed against a pine tree, semi-conscious, his clothes torn and muddied from what appeared to be a fall. Despite his disheveled appearance, the man wore a faded military cap, clutched even in his weakened state. Caleb immediately assessed the situation with his emergency medical training. He checked vital signs, noted signs of dehydration and exposure, but found no critical injuries. He constructed a basic shelter using his emergency kit, then radioed his hiking group. I found someone in distress. Zach led the group back to the trailhead. I'm staying overnight, the hikers protested, concern and fear evident in their voices. You can't stay out here with a stranger. He could be dangerous. We should call rangers instead. The nearest ranger station is 4 hours away, Caleb stated calmly. Night temperatures will drop below freezing. He won't survive that long. Zach pulled him aside. Caleb, this isn't Afghanistan. You don't need to risk yourself for strangers anymore. Caleb's expression remained unreadable. Go back. I'll be fine. Throughout the night, Caleb maintained a small fire, shared his water and emergency rations, and kept watch as the elderly man drifted in and out of consciousness. He wrapped his own thermal blanket around the stranger, using only his lightweight jacket for himself. Just before dawn, as the forest creatures began their morning chorus, the man's eyes opened with new clarity. He studied Caleb's face with sudden recognition. You were at Fallujah, weren't you? He whispered hoarsely. Caleb stiffened. It wasn't a question civilians asked. It was the kind of perception that came only from someone who had been there, who recognized the particular vigilance that combat imprints on a soldier's soul. Get some rest, Caleb replied flatly. You're not alone anymore. If you believe a good person deserves to be remembered, stay here with us. By morning, the stranger had regained enough strength to sit upright, accepting the hot coffee Caleb prepared over the campfire. His hands trembled slightly as he held the cup. I should apologize, he said, his voice gravely from disuse. I can't seem to remember my name clearly. The days blur together out here. Caleb nodded without judgment. He'd known veterans who lost more than memories to the aftershocks of war. How long have you been in these woods? Caleb asked, offering a protein bar from his pack. The man's gaze drifted toward the mountains. People think I'm dead already. Something in his tone made Caleb look closer. As the man shifted, his torn jacket revealed a fragment of military identification tags, partially obscured by dirt, but still legible. R. Rourke, 1st Marine Recon. The name triggered Caleb's memory. A 2010 news brief about a classified mission gone wrong. A team presumed loss. An operation the government neither confirmed nor denied. The kind of operation that didn't exist on paper. You need medical attention, Caleb said carefully, avoiding any mention of the tag he'd seen. I have a cabin about 3 miles from here. Think you can make it with some help? The man, Rourke, nodded. Their journey was slow, punctuated by rest breaks and Caleb's quiet encouragement. When they finally reached the simple wooden structure Caleb called home, the exhaustion was evident on both their faces. Caleb contacted local authorities, reporting only that he'd found a disoriented hiker needing medical assistance, but declining emergency evacuation. Something told him that drawing too much official attention might do more harm than good. Over the next few days, Caleb provided simple meals, clean clothes, and a spare bedroom with a window facing the sunrise. He asked no questions about military service or how a presumed dead Marine had ended up wandering his forest. The man who tacitly accepted being called Mathis spoke little but watched everything. He flinched at sudden noises. He organized his borrowed clothes with military precision. One morning, catching sight of the American flag, Caleb kept mounted by the porch. Rourke automatically straightened to attention, his hand halfway to a salute before he seemed to remember himself. On the fourth night, Caleb was awakened by shouts from the guest room. He found Mathis tangled in sheets, eyes wide but unseeing. "They left me there. All of them," Mathis muttered, still caught in his nightmare. The coordinates were wrong. Wrong. Caleb recognized the signs of a flashback and kept his distance while speaking in calm, measured tones until recognition returned to Mathis's eyes. "Sorry," Mathis whispered, embarrassment replacing fear. "Bad night. I've had a few myself," Caleb replied simply. The next morning, while Mathis was taking a shower, Caleb made a single, carefully considered phone call to a former teammate, now working at the Pentagon. Without providing specifics, he asked about the status of Recon Team Echo, deployed in. The long silence before his friend responded told Caleb everything. "That file's been closed a long time, Caleb," came the cautious reply. Team commander was Lieutenant Colonel Robert Mathis, led a 12-man unit on a high-priority intelligence gathering mission. Official record states all hands lost. And unofficially, another pause, there were rumors. One survivor, possibly held captive for years, escaped but suffering severe PTSD and memory loss. The brass kept it quiet. Having a presumed dead officer suddenly reappear raises too many questions about missions that never officially happened. Caleb thanked him and ended the call, the pieces falling into place. Mathis hadn't just been any Marine. He'd been a commanding officer who had somehow survived when his entire unit was lost, only to be effectively erased from the record, because his existence complicated the official narrative. What do you think about someone being forgotten simply because they survived? Type UNFAIR if you believe that's unjust. Caleb was stoking the morning fire when he heard vehicles approaching, multiple engines moving with coordinated precision up his access road. He stepped onto the porch, instantly alert, old instincts resurfacing as he assessed the situation. 5 military vehicles emerged from the tree line, their olive-drab exteriors unmistakable against the forest backdrop. They formed a perfect semicircle in front of his cabin, engines falling silent in unison. From the lead vehicle, a Marine officer in full dress uniform stepped out. The silver oak leaves on his collar marked him as a lieutenant colonel. Behind him emerged a security detail, a medical team, and what appeared to be government officials in dark suits. "Mr. Matthews?" The officer approached, his posture revealing years of military discipline. "I'm Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Shaw, United States Marine Corps." Caleb stood his ground, saying nothing, his body language neither welcoming nor hostile. "We've come concerning the GPS transponder signal that activated 3 days ago," Shaw continued, "a signal belonging to someone once considered a legend in our ranks, someone we believe you've been sheltering." Caleb's expression remained neutral. "I found a hiker in distress. I brought him to safety, that's all." "Mr. Matthews," one of the suited men interjected, "that hiker is Lieutenant Colonel Robert Rourke, former commanding officer of Marine Reconnaissance Team Echo, officially listed as killed in action." Caleb glanced toward his cabin, where Rourke had appeared in the doorway, watching the proceedings with wary eyes. "Then perhaps," Caleb replied evenly, "you should be speaking with him." The assembled Marines turned toward Rourke. Lieutenant Colonel Shaw approached slowly, then rendered a perfect formal salute. "Sir," he said, his voice carrying across the clearing, "welcome home." "Colonel." Every uniformed person present snapped to attention, saluting in unison. Rourke stood frozen, confusion evident on his face. His hand twitched at his side, muscle memory fighting against the disorientation that had been his companion for years. A young Marine stepped forward from the group, no more than 25 years old. He approached Rourke with reverence. "Colonel Rourke," he said, his voice breaking slightly, "I'm Corporal Ethan Blake. My father was Staff Sergeant Benjamin Blake, the last man you pulled from the wreckage before the secondary explosion." Tears formed in the young Marine's eye. "He told me how you went back in when everyone else was running out, how you carried him through enemy fire when his legs were shattered. He died last year, sir, but he never stopped telling your story." Something shifted in Rourke's expression, a flicker of recognition, a ghost of the commander he had once been. He straightened almost imperceptibly. "Your father," he said slowly, searching for words, had a picture of you, kept it in his helmet. The young Marine nodded, tears now flowing freely. Yes, sir, that was me at 10 years old. A medical officer stepped forward. Colonel, we need to transport you to Walter Reed Medical Center. Your implanted emergency tracker activated when Mr. Porter brought you within range of a search satellite. We've been looking for you for a very long time. Looking? Rourke questioned, the word heavy with disbelief. Yes, sir, Shaw confirmed. Despite the official record, a small team has been searching since intelligence suggested you might have escaped captivity. The mission to find you never officially existed, but it never stopped. The government officials explained that Rourke would be transported to Washington for specialized treatment, medical care for his physical condition, targeted therapy for his trauma-induced memory loss, and a careful process of reintegration. Your service record will be restored, one official stated. Your medals reinstated, your sacrifice acknowledged. Throughout the exchange, Caleb remained on his porch, a silent observer to the reunion between a lost warrior and the Corps that had never truly abandoned him. When approached by a senior officer offering thanks, Caleb simply shook his head. I didn't save anyone, he said quietly. I just did what any soldier would do for another. Before departing, Rourke approached Caleb, standing straighter than he had in days, some element of his former command presence returning. They tell me I've been wandering for years, he said, that I escaped a prisoner camp, but couldn't remember who I was or where to go, just that I wasn't supposed to trust anyone in uniform. Caleb nodded. The mind protects itself in strange ways. You could have called authorities immediately, Rourke observed, had me institutionalized. But you didn't. You were a soldier in need. Caleb replied simply, that's all I needed to know. The two men exchanged a look that contained more understanding than civilians could comprehend. The unspoken brotherhood forged only in the crucible of combat. As the military convoy prepared to depart, one of the officers hammered a small plaque into the ground near the trailhead where Caleb had first found Rourke. At this sight, one who was forgotten was finally called home. Have you ever made the right choice when everyone else walked away? Your story matters too. A week later, Caleb received an official letter from Marine Corps headquarters. Thank you for not forgetting one of our own. Enclosed was a formal commendation, recognizing his role in what was now being called Operation Homebound. The letter mentioned that Colonel Rourke was responding well to treatment, with memories returning in steady fragments. Caleb placed the letter in his desk drawer without showing it to anyone. Recognition had never been his motivation. 3 days later, at precisely 0700 hours, Caleb heard vehicles approaching again. Looking through his cabin window, he saw something that made him pause. A line of Marines in dress blues forming along his driveway. There were no officers giving commands, no official vehicles, just Marines standing shoulder to shoulder in perfect formation. One by one, each Marine approached his front steps, placed a small American flag in the ground, rendered a solemn salute, and silently returned to position. The last in line was Corporal Jensen, who left something additional with his flag. A framed photograph of his father with Colonel Rourke, taken somewhere in the desert years ago. No speeches were given, no explanations offered. When the last flag was planted, the Marines departed as silently as they had arrived, leaving a pathway of stars and stripes leading to Caleb's door. From his window, Caleb watched them go. For the first time in years, he smiled, a genuine expression that reached his eyes. That evening, as sunset painted the mountains in amber and gold, Caleb sat on his porch looking at the row of flags gently moving in the breeze. His phone rang, a secure line very few people possessed. He remembered the rest today, said the voice of his Pentagon contact. The entire mission, names of his captors, everything. Doctors are calling it remarkable. He's a Marine. Caleb replied, remarkable is standard issue. Some who walk through war never truly walk alone. But sometimes they need reminding that they haven't been forgotten. And sometimes a person comes home not through official channels or paperwork, but through the actions of a brother in arms who refuses to look away. Have you ever helped someone without knowing who they were? Share your story, because sometimes the small things we do touch history itself. Caleb had always believed that the world didn't need more noise. It needed more listening. And in that forest, he hadn't just rescued a man. He'd reminded a legacy that its flame still flickered. The stars on the flags outside his door were more than symbols. They were silent testaments to the truth that no one who serves should ever be forgotten. Subscribe to Incredible Stories, where we preserve memories of what's right, even when the world once kept silent.